Hey friends, coming at you today with a little more encouragement regarding predicted food shortages. It's really interesting because I had a viewer comment in one of my previous food shortage videos asking if this was an April Fool's joke and that she had heard nothing of the sort. I don't understand how anyone can have heard nothing of coming shortages at this point. If you Google global food crisis, global food shortages, US food shortages, it's everywhere, all over the news, all the doom and gloom, the sky is falling, and it's really got my wheels turning on how else I can bring some encouragement and inspiration and motivation to keep you filling your pantry, filling your freezers, and also educating yourself and building skills between now and whatever may come. One of the major things I talked about in my previous 2 food shortage videos was stocking up on the basics, building a pantry foundation with all the usual things like pasta, rice, beans, oats. Those are the main things. Flour, whole wheat if you grind your own flour. I wanted to dig a little bit deeper with some other options. And I'm just thinking in terms of like Depression era cooking, which reminds me of another recommendation I wanted to make, and that is to purchase some Amish, Mennonite, or Depression era cookbooks. I have a few that I've picked up at secondhand stores like Second and Charles, or even Goodwill Books. We have a big Goodwill bookstore in our area. And of course, there's places like Amazon. One really good one is called The More with Less Cookbook. There is a YouTube channel called Depression Cooking with Clara that is super fun and entertaining to watch. It is this sweet elderly woman who lived through the Depression and recalls many of her favorite family recipes back when they would buy 1 bag of potatoes to feed their family for the entire week. I highly suggest that you check it out. She has since passed away, but her recipes and videos live on. I want to repeat a couple things that I mentioned in the first 2 videos in this series, and that is you want to be able to have some variety with very minimal basics. I'm thinking through worst case scenarios. Let's just assume for the next year we couldn't go back to the grocery store. What kind of variety can you serve your family with what you have now? One of the ways that you can add some variety and lots of flavor options to simple meals that consist of pasta, rice, beans is by having a variety of sauces, condiments, salad dressings. Sauces such as spaghetti sauce and other tomato-based sauces, Alfredo sauce, barbecue sauce, different Asian sauces, soy sauce. You can easily make a homemade yum yum sauce or like a Japanese white sauce with things like butter, mayonnaise, garlic powder, and just a little squirt of ketchup or tomato paste. It's so simple and adds a lot to a very humble vegetable fried rice. You can make tuna noodle casserole with any type of pasta, as little as 1 can of tuna, some peas, and some mayonnaise. Of course, you can add garlic powder, ginger, salt and pepper, whatever you want, but the basics are there. Be thinking through your family's favorite comfort foods and how you could make them without meat or dairy if necessary. Now, I will say I highly suggest that you stock up on powdered milk. It's not very expensive for a large bag at a place like Sam's or Walmart, and a little goes a long way when a recipe calls for milk. Recipes that come to mind are things like beef stew. You could easily make a hearty, thick beef stew that'll stick to your ribs by thickening some beef broth with cornstarch or flour, and you still add the carrots, potatoes, onions, or really any other vegetable you want to add, but those are the traditional ones. Serve it over rice or potatoes or pasta. You could serve it with a side of bread, and it would still be a delicious comfort food even if you don't have the beef. Chicken pot pie is another great option. You can make a simple pie crust with basic pantry staples. You can add vegetables, make your roux or gravy with any kind of fat, really. Butter and bacon grease are certainly the best flavors, but you could use coconut oil, olive oil, lard, even Crisco, although I would not recommend that. But desperate times call for desperate measures. Again, having spices and herbs on hand, and certainly salt and pepper, are going to make a world of difference and go a long way with simple recipes. Rice with gravy is good. I have a recipe for chicken and gravy, and you do not need a whole lot of chicken. You can use 1 chicken breast. I just canned 8 pints of chicken and 7 quarts of chicken yesterday. I'm going to put out a video on that soon. But I could open 1 pint, which was a little less than 1 large chicken breast, and add that to any meal. And it's amazing how just a tiny bit of meat for your family to see that there's meat in the dish, it's like it puts their mind at ease. It doesn't have to be a lot. I often do that with recipes like chicken and wild rice soup or chicken and wild rice casserole. I've also swapped the chicken for white beans. Something I want to encourage you to do over the next couple of months while things are still relatively normal around here, depending on where you live, and that is to build your repertoire of recipes, your skills. If you have a garden or you are a homesteader, start researching all the different things you can do with what you already plan to grow. For years, I never really did much with zucchini except for cook it. Occasionally we would have fried zucchini, which is such a treat in the summer in the South especially. We would eat a lot of hibachi with chicken and maybe venison, squash, zucchini, onions, mushrooms, and serve it over rice with different Asian sauces. So delicious. But that was kind of the extent of my use for zucchini. I have now found fantastic recipes such as pineapple zucchini and zucchini relish. Did you know there are multiple dietary and health uses for different parts of the sunflower? I grew a 30-foot row of different varieties of sunflowers last year and was really excited to find this video by Off Grid with Doug and Stacy that I will link below, where Stacy shares like a dozen uses for the different parts of the sunflower, one of which includes using it as supplemental feed for your chickens. But my point is, I strongly suggest that you start a notebook now if you don't have one already, compiling a paper copy of all of your favorite recipes. Start looking up recipes on simple rice dishes, simple bean dishes, simple pasta dishes, different ways to make oatmeal, different snacks to make with oats. Try them out and print them. Make tweaks where you need to for dietary reasons or to better appease your family's taste. If you aren't growing your own food, maybe you should consider using 5-gallon buckets to grow potatoes. Did you know you could put 2 potatoes in a 5-gallon bucket with some soil? In any place that receives 6 to 8 hours of sun per day, those 2 potatoes should produce 5 to 10 potatoes each by the end of the season. That's a lot of food for a very simple process. Do you have a fence anywhere around your property where things like peas or pole beans could grow? Those are 2 very simple crops to plant. They're cheap to buy the seeds for. They're also easy to save the seeds once you've produced them yourself. But you could put those in pots near a trellis or a fence where they could grow up, and the more that you harvest, the more they'll produce. Cherry tomatoes are extremely prolific. We can hardly pick them as fast as they become ripe in the summer. That is another easy one that you could put in a pot on your front porch or your back deck or your balcony if you live in an apartment. What's the worst that could happen? You don't get any? At least you tried, and you learn more every year. If you're not already thinking about next year's food storage and next year's garden, it's time to make a shift in your mindset. This year, I'm going to be extremely intentional about saving the seeds from our favorite organic and heirloom varieties. That's just about all that I grow now, but one of the ways that I am going to do that easily is by keeping my empty seed envelopes. As I plant and I run out of seeds in certain varieties, I'm just going to put the envelopes back in my seed organizer, and as I start to harvest in a couple of months, I'm going to make sure I set aside the seeds to properly dry them and store them for next year. That way, if there's not a single seed available in retail stores or online next year, I have what I saved this year. It's not as hard as it sounds, and the internet has an endless wealth of information. Make a list of things that you would like to do this year to better prepare your family, build up your food storage, build up your knowledge to grow your own food, and write it down. I have a whole notebook on how many pounds of food each plant of each variety produces, how many pounds I need to fill a quart jar and a pint jar. I'm kind of a nerd when it comes to those numbers and those facts. It's just fun. It's fun to have a plan and be prepared. It's very empowering. If you don't already have a compost pile, start one today. Just add your kitchen scraps. If you're anywhere near a farm or a ranch that has horses or cows, call them or stop by and ask if you can come and pick up manure once a month. It's free, and I could almost guarantee they wouldn't mind. That's more that you can add to your compost pile. And there is nothing better for growing vegetables than composted manure. My final thought for today is make a list of things that you can be doing right now in the off season while we're not knee deep in the garden pulling weeds and harvesting food. Make a list of things that you can be doing to further your family's food storage. Some very simple things that I've done and will continue to do is pressure canning meat to put on the pantry shelf. That's super convenient. Buying some vegetables in bulk that you can go ahead and can and put on the shelf. I just did that with 10 pounds of carrots. I plan to do the same with onions. Did you know you can pressure can caramelized onions? I know not everyone says that's approved, but you do what you feel is comfortable. I have a fantastic recipe from that 1870s homestead, and I'm really excited to try it out. You just put a whole bunch of onions and butter in a slow cooker, and then you pressure can the delicious results. Another way to use up those dried beans that you've been stockpiling is to pressure can them. You soak them overnight in the mason jars that you're going to use to can them, rinse them the next day, stick them in the canner, and they're ready to go on the shelf. I'll do a video on that soon as well. That's all I've got for today. Those are just some things that have been running through my mind that I wanted to share with you. Hopefully, like I said, as encouragement and inspiration, I want to motivate you to keep moving. No matter what the news says, there's always something you can do to be preparing your family for whatever is to come. If you never see shortages in your area, then you've lost nothing, and you've learned more ways to better prepare your family for anything you may face. You will definitely see inflation. So preparing your family now with regards to food storage, growing your own food, and preserving your food is doing nothing but good. Thanks for watching.